We'd like to move on to the panel discussion right now. We see that the pandemic and the trade war are leading to restructuring of the industry and cross-discipline integration. Of course, there will be a lot of challenges, but also many opportunities at the same time. And to make sure this transformation nice and smooth, it takes a lot of cross-border cooperation and exchanges. That is why Taiwan and the U.S. signed a joint statement on a partnership against the coronavirus. By leveraging each other's resources and advantages, both Taiwan and the U.S. will contribute to the restructuring of global supply chains and industrial ecology evolution. To open the panel discussion for us today, we have the honor to invite the Director of American Institute in Taiwan, AIT, Mr. William Brent Christensen.
Thank you, Raymond. Hello, everyone. AIT is delighted to co-host this invaluable webinar with the Taiwan USA Industrial Cooperation Promotion Office, or TUSA. The webinar you are about to see will showcase the strength of the U.S.-Taiwan economic partnership, from our cooperation in managing the COVID-19 pandemic to future cooperation opportunities in supply chain restructuring. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought many changes. One of the most noteworthy global trends is the accelerated restructuring of supply chains away from China. It has become abundantly clear to the whole world that there are risks in being overly reliant upon a single supplier, particularly one that does not adhere to international trade norms. The COVID-19 pandemic and its lasting consequences will likely change the way many companies evaluate the risks of investing so heavily in China and will encourage economies around the world to seek trustworthy trade partners and supply lines. The recent visit of U.S. HHS Secretary Alex Azar to Taiwan signifies the strengthened ties between the United States and Taiwan and the important role that Taiwan can play in the international arena. The United States applauds the success of the Taiwan model of pandemic response on COVID-19 and hopes that it can serve as an exemplar to countries around the world. The United States also believes that Taiwan has distinguished itself as a trusted supplier of medical equipment. During the initial outbreak of COVID-19, medical supplies, including necessary PPE, were in high demand all over the world. Taiwan mobilized its industry, becoming the world's largest manufacturer of surgical masks for a time. While Taiwan's ability to provide for itself is admirable, Taiwan's assistance to the United States during this crisis is even more inspiring. Taiwan has been the single largest donor of medical supplies to the United States during the initial phase of pandemic response, providing the U.S. with millions of masks, gowns, gloves, and other PPE. As we evaluate what changes to the global supply chain are necessary in light of the pandemic, one thing is certain: Taiwan has demonstrated time and again that it is a reliable partner and a critical player in moving toward a more sustainable global economy. Moreover, we look forward to working together to establish more resilient supply chains in the event of future crises. In addition, it is worth highlighting that Taiwan is at the center of regional high-technology supply chains. Taiwan firms are the leading industry players that helped to develop ICT and other supply chains in the PRC over 30 years ago. In contrast with PRC-backed companies, Taiwan firms adhere to the rule of law, protect intellectual property, and share our democratic values. Taiwan is also an important source of inbound investment in the United States and a major investor in high-quality industries. For the past 2 years, Taiwan brought the largest delegations to the select USA investment summits. This May, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporation, or TSMC, announced that it intends to invest $12 billion in Arizona to develop a state-of-the-art semiconductor fabrication foundry. The TSMC facility in Arizona aims to produce chips that can power everything from artificial intelligence to 5G base stations. TSMC's announcement comes at a critical juncture, as we all know that the PRC is competing to dominate cutting-edge technology and control critical industries in the world. As you will hear in the following panel discussions, we believe that Taiwan has a unique role to play in reshaping global supply chains for the health, security, and prosperity of the international community. Again, I believe that through our concerted efforts, we can help U.S. and Taiwan businesses seek new opportunities and overcome challenges during supply chain adjustments to thrive in the post-pandemic economy, a perfect example of how the United States and Taiwan, as real friends, are making real progress to help industries in the United States and Taiwan strive together and thrive together. We at AIT look forward to working with all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Director Christensen. Joining us right now for the discussion on industry restructuring, Taiwan's strategic role highlighted during the pandemic, and the opportunities coming from a closer U.S.-Taiwan relationship. We have Chih-Ching Yang, Deputy Director General of Industrial Development Bureau IDB under the Ministry of Economic Affairs, MOEA. R.C. Shroff, Deputy Chief of Economic Section of American Institute in Taiwan, AIT. Jeffrey Tung, Managing Director of 3M Taiwan.
Thank you.
And Stephen Su, Vice President and General Director of Industry Science and Technology International Strategy Center, Industrial Technology Research Institute, ITRI.
Hi.
And I would like to start the session with a question to Mr. Yang. Earlier, Minister Wang of Economic Affairs shared with us the story of Taiwan's national team of mass production. And I know that the IDB has been very instrumental during this whole process. So with Mr. Yang here, I would like to dig a little bit deeper. And Mr. Yang, would you please share with us a little bit more about this story, the role of the policymaker, and what has the government done right to make all this happen?
Okay, MOEA has long provided good services and maintain good relationship with the industry. Thus, the government is able to leverage all national resources and assure the capacity of supplies at times of global pandemic outbreak. The government is well aware of all current situations in the industry. This is largely attributed to the government's daily help on local industry technology transformation and upgrade, including resolving problems associated with investment. The industrial union and the associations also play an important part in advising the government. The leaders of these associations provide prompt suggestions, so MOEA will react in a short time. The result of all this render close partnership and direct control on the distribution and the production of PPE, personal protective equipment, which include masks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yang. So it really takes cross-industry and cross-government agency collective efforts to make all this happen. Coming to my second question to our speakers here. This year, from the global coronavirus shutdown, we see the risk of over-dependence on one single market and the need to bring manufacturing back home and the need to restructure the industry. But I would say it's a huge step, it's a huge move for the companies. So do you think the companies are going to do it? If they do, how are we going to help them? And I would also like to go to Mr. Yang for this question first.
Over the past 10 years, we have already seen a massive wave of low-value manufacturing leaving from China. Most of these factories moved to Southeast Asia for lower wages and land costs. This year, the coronavirus pandemic and the trade war between the United States and China have pushed the company away even more. Both the U.S. and the Taiwan governments have been inviting their business in China to come back home and offer them greater incentive. Now we have seen positive results from these efforts. For example, in 2019, Taiwan passed a law that promised rent assistance, cheap finance, tax breaks, and easier procedure for investment. The move buffered the impact of U.S.-China trade war on our economy and led to an investment of total $25.9 billion by the returned Taiwanese business as of mid-July 2020. The government should encourage cooperation in innovation between companies to increase their competitive advantage, creating a blue sea.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yang. And Arati, what is your take on this?
Thank you for asking. So I'd like to just start out by saying the United States government, we are undertaking a whole of government approach to address the topic of supply chain restructuring. And of course, we're looking forward to working with Taiwan on this effort. With COVID-19 and other uncertainties, I think the world has begun to realize that the dangers of over-reliance on China, especially for vital goods, such as medical supplies, pharmaceuticals, and technology products. Diversification of supply chains has become an issue of national and economic security for the like-minded Indo-Pacific. Now, what are we focused on? I'd say we're focused on three specific parts. One, diversifying and bringing supply chains closer to the end user. Many of those are in the United States, tech companies. Secondly, ensuring that countries don't hold supply chains hostage for political purposes. And I think we know who we're referring to here. And then, of course, working with like-minded partners and economies, including Taiwan, to develop new supply chains based on shared values, standards, environmental, and labor practices. Now, Taiwan does have a very unique opportunity to reshape global supply chains for the betterment of the world. As my fellow panelists have noted, Taiwan firms are the leading industry players that help to develop ICT and other industries and supply chains in the PRC over 20 and 30 years ago. While many of these firms are beginning to reshore their investment from China back into Taiwan, they also want to partner with the United States, as well as other like-minded economies in the Indo-Pacific, to build out new supply chains of the future. And of course, as we all know, Taiwan firms are much better at adhering to the rule of law and protecting intellectual property. So companies from like-minded economies, including the United States and Taiwan, we should stick together to tackle these common problems of moving supply chains and restructuring supply chains to new geographical locations, whether that's the United States or in the like-minded Indo-Pacific. Now, while many American and Taiwan companies, they often talk about there being poor infrastructure in other countries, and that is one of their major concerns in trying to recreate clusters in order to move their production sites to other economies. I think if we jointly work together to improve some of those challenges, whether it might be dealing with transportation networks, distribution, warehouse, logistics, and modernize supply chains, I think that will really be better for all of our economies. And I just want to point out that the newly created U.S. International Development Finance Corporation, it's coming out with some new authorities that could really be helpful in this effort of supply chain restructuring. So whether that's helping to develop infrastructure in low and middle income economies and countries, helping to develop regional energy security, developing better standards, providing some type of architectural and engineering services, I think all of these could be very much helpful in our supply chain restructuring efforts.
Thank you very much, Arati. And next, from the perspective of a research institute, I'm very curious, Stephen, what your thoughts are.
Okay. From our research, the general trend is that manufacturing companies and their customers from overseas will begin to diversify their production sites in the future. Two obvious reasons are COVID-19 and also the US-China technology war. This shift, however, will be faster in speed and also greater in scale than what we have seen in 2003 SARS. And the reason is that back in 2003, when SARS happened, our global customers told us that it is not enough to have production sites in different parts of Taiwan, but need to have, for example, in China, in different provinces. But as you could see from this epidemic, that it's not enough to have production sites in the same country or not even enough in the same continent. So here, the relocation is gonna be a trend. However, usually it's costly, but because of the recent new technologies such as automation and also smart manufacturing, Industry 4.0, the cost of labor, land, are no longer major factors. Instead, people attach bigger value and significance to, for example, the ecosystems, the availability of talents, and also the industrial clusters. Most of those are Taiwan's strength. And therefore, while our government usually would not be involved in getting into private companies' decision to relocate, however, our government are very active in providing, for example, needed informations and also domestic environment and also incentives conducive to attracting companies of Taiwan origin and also international origins to invest in manufacturing based in Taiwan.
Thank you very much, Stephen. And I think with what our speakers just said, that even though that the global supply chains might change, but I think we are still looking forward to a lot of operation and also cooperation opportunities. So this brings me to my next question. And that cross-border and also cross-discipline cooperation usually will spur a lot of innovations and also a lot of business opportunities. But I'm just wondering, do you also see some challenges coming from it? If there is a challenge, what can we do, or what is the assistance needed? And for this, I would like to firstly go to Jeffrey.
Yeah, I think this is a good question. Mutual understanding and mutual trust, actually, they are the foundation for the cooperation and for any collaborations. So through the mutual understanding, you can understand that 3M and many of the American-based companies in Taiwan, actually, they are not a competitor to the domestic companies. Instead, they are really partners that they can work together to play in different value proposition and win together and make Taiwan can be strong than ever. So I will believe in the coming years, we will understand, especially for pandemic outbreak, no one can stay alone. We must collaborate more than before, and we can help each other leverage the strength and leverage the values that we can fight all the adversity and making our world, our life better.
Thank you very much, Jeffrey. And next, I would like to go to Stephen for your take on this issue.
Okay, in general, cross-discipline cooperation or cross-border cooperation will be very challenging. It goes without saying that once you have two people together, it's hard to cooperate already, but you have two people speaking two different languages or more people that are from different domains, they all spell for challenges. And we all know that Taiwan does not have big domestic market, but when it comes to industry clusters, when it comes to integration of different systems, different components, hardware, software, we face the same challenges as bigger countries and also bigger industries. But for Taiwan, we can be faster in speed, we can be better integrated in different disciplines. For example, in manufacturing, we could put Taiwan's cultural domain into it, so that, for example, that it speak better language with Taiwanese operators. In medicines, we could see that in long-term healthcare, that you need to have the cultural element, like what we have in long-term care, for example. In the future, even retailing, that you could have automatic shops, but you need to talk to people. And that's where the cross-discipline cooperation will come in. And Taiwan does not have a big domestic market, but we do have a large global manufacturing print everywhere. So in the future, that we could see Taiwan as an extension of manufacturing base into the global ecosystems for the global brands, for example, from the US as an example. So even though cross-discipline cooperation and also cross-border cooperation will be very hard, but Taiwan is well positioned to be part of the ecosystem as a critical partner.
Thank you very much, Stephen. And Ozzy, what do you think we can do to make this cross-border and cross-discipline cooperation a little bit less difficult?
Well, first I want to echo what Jeffrey and what Stephen talked about. The cooperation really is the key before we address what the challenges are. And especially when we're dealing with technology sectors, I'd say that technology cooperation for decades has been the core of the U.S.-Taiwan economic relationship. Now, the United States considers Taiwan to be one of its most important and trusted Indo-Pacific partners, not just because of Taiwan's technological prowess, but also because of its core democratic values, universal values that we both share. So for these reasons, that's why many U.S. firms, including 3M, have chosen to make Taiwan central to their efforts, whether that be hardware-software integration, research and development, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things. These sectors have all gone hand in hand with Taiwan's flourishing democracy. And in fact, I just want to point out recently, a Taiwan court ruled favorably. A Taiwan court ruling in favor of Micron in a landmark trade secrets case really underscored Taiwan's commitment to protecting intellectual property. Now, you talked about the challenges, of course. So one of the challenges as we deal with many of these issues is talent. How do we ensure that we continue to inspire talent to move between like-minded economies, between Taiwan, the United States, and other economies that share similar values that I mentioned? Now, we saw in previous generations that really that U.S.-Taiwan educational connection really helped spur Taiwan industry, including the semiconductor industry. And I'm actually really excited to say that Stephen is the perfect example of that, given that his background of studying in the United States, as well as many others in Taiwan industry who then came back and really helped fuel and spur future industries here. We in the United States government, we're really looking forward to creating that linkage for the next generation of industries, the next generation of technologies. So last year, along with the Taiwan authorities and other private companies, the U.S. government, AIT, we launched a talent circulation alliance, which seeks to really cultivate a deep pool of capable, internationally integrated, and digitally savvy professionals. So that way we continue to recreate that U.S.-Taiwan industrial cooperation story for the digital age. I'd also like to point out, there's another great example of how we're continuing to cooperate to overcome challenges. TSMC, their recent announcement that it will set up an advanced chip-making facility in Arizona is another example of how we continue to cooperate to overcome challenges. Lastly, I would encourage many Taiwan companies to leverage the United States Select USA program and individual U.S. states' business development agencies. These U.S. agencies can play a very large role in helping with investment in the United States, and in very practical ways. Individual U.S. states also have the ability to help shape educational institutions' collaborative efforts with large local economic players.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Yang, what's your advice on that?
Yeah. The most difficult challenge for cross-discipline and cross-border cooperation is to understand the difference between each other, including technology, business model, laws, and so on. Government can play a good role here as a coordinator, bring together all stakeholders, create a platform for cooperation and exchange, even provide resources to trigger more possibility. We here in IDB, MOEA, have worked closely with the U.S. For example, Commerce Department of Idaho. We have signed several MOU and built up platforms for industrial cooperation, including green energy, semiconductor, aerospace, entrepreneurship, talent collaboration, medical device, and smart manufacturing. The platform have bring together the academia, universities, research institute, and the government agency of the U.S. and Taiwan, and the results are fruitful. Micron technology has increased investment in Taiwan, and this is one of the most vivid cases.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yang. So I'm literally saving the shortest question to the last. I'm just wondering what your takes on how do Taiwan and the U.S. deepen their ties? Arati, you'll go first.
Well, I don't know if I have a short answer for you, but I appreciate the short question. What I would say fundamentally is that the United States considers Taiwan a key partner in building trusted global supply chains for semiconductors and other innovative technology. We will continue to highlight this partnership by showing that we share economic values. Both of our economies can be characterized as having free markets. They're private sector driven, sustainable growth, innovative, focused on entrepreneurship, respect for intellectual property rights, and abiding by international rules and agreements that create a level playing field. And beyond these economic values, I would say that the United States and Taiwan also share what we refer to as international values, contributing to global problem solving. Now, we saw more than ever this past year that Taiwan really showcased how it is a force for good in the world and how it's exporting solutions rather than problems. The COVID-19 pandemic, of course, highlighted our shared economic values and how we'll continue to deepen our partnership. The United States and Taiwan are epicenters for cutting-edge research and technology, including in the medical space. Just 2 weeks ago, the United States and Taiwan signed a memorandum of understanding to enhance, among other things, private sector cooperation on vaccines, therapeutics, pharmaceuticals, medical devices, and medical supplies. COVID-19 has also solidified Taiwan's status as a trusted supplier of medical equipment and technology, and we hope that supply chains will continue to shift both towards the United States and Taiwan. Now, there are many opportunities for future U.S.-Taiwan collaboration. Our two economies already enjoy a very high degree of cooperation, for instance, in the ICT sector. I don't know if you're aware, but in 2015, the United States and Taiwan launched the Digital Economy Forum to deepen our partnership and promote closer coordination and knowledge exchange on policies and goals in the digital age, as our two economies share an interest in promoting the open internet, the free flow of information across borders, and furthering developing the global digital economy along similar values. In the most recent Digital Economy Forum held last year, our two economies held discussions on working together in many areas, such as advancing the deployment of secure and trusted 5G networks, collaborating on technology standards, and exchanging policy approaches for the responsible use of artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things. And that's just a few areas. In the area of cybersecurity, we also see great potential for industry-to-industry cooperation between the United States and Taiwan. Given Taiwan's interest in developing the Internet of Things, an important part of that process will be ensuring the integrity of data in Internet of Things networks, especially in light of Taiwan's recent experience with cyber attacks. With the IoT, everything is connected, so therefore everything is also hackable.
Thank you very much, Arati. I know you can talk like 10 more minutes on this question, and that also shows us how much potential actually there is between cooperation between U.S. and Taiwan. Thank you once again. And Minister Yang, I would also like to go to you next for this question.
Okay, both Taiwan and the United States are facing higher costs in labor, land, and others than Southeast Asia country and India. It is not realistic to expect the labor-intensive industry to return home. So the two countries should join hands in a practical way to develop high-value-added and strategic industry. We can promote bilateral investments, create new jobs with emerging intelligent technology industries, such as 5G, AIoT, and many, and use the advantages of the huge pool of superior talent and technology. In response to U.S. government's policy, which is bringing manufacturing home, Taiwan should enter U.S. industrial value chains and link with U.S. innovation and industrial cluster. We should also use the advantage in speed commercialization and of innovation and partner with the US to explore the global markets, creating a win-win situation for both.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yang. And Jeffrey, I would also like to know what your insights are on behalf of the industry.
Yeah, I think cooperation, collaboration, and partnership are three main key pillars for our strategic relationship. I do believe 3M and many of the American-based companies in Taiwan, they are not just investing in sales and marketing to sell the products. Instead, they invest in R&D, invest in innovation center, they invest in manufacturing, and even logistics. This is to show the strong commitment rather than just a one-time investment. I would believe for 3M kind of American-based company will continue to hire majority as a local talent that to learn the advanced technologies, and we can also share the new idea about the innovations. I believe our values is the same with our Taiwan people and the government, like sustainability, like diversity and inclusion. So I do believe together we win, together we were strong than ever.
Thank you very much, Jeffrey. And lastly, Stephen, your thoughts.
While we talk about it's challenging to have cross-border and cross-discipline cooperation, however, when two people share the same set of value, then it's easier for us to work together. I think both US and Taiwan share the same set of value in terms of innovation, in terms of respect for people and their rights, and also in terms of working together and complement each other for the better goods of the society. I very much like to mention the idea that AIT has brought up talent circulation. I remember my first job was in Phoenix, Arizona, working in a semiconductor factory. That factory has gone away, and now we see TSMC going back. So Taiwan could be a good partner for US whenever that US needs manufacturing at home. We could use platforms, technology from US in Taiwan, for example, from Google, Apple, Amazon, etc. And in the future, that we could see more people going back and forth. For example, that ITRI has students and researchers visiting us each year. We have many people sent to US for collaboration. So all in all, I think that this talent circulation between US and Taiwan could be fostering more collaboration in the future.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Thank you once again to all of our speakers for bringing us such a wonderful, wonderful discussion. Thank you once again.
Taiwan USA Industrial Cooperation Promotion Office, MOEA. Your professional and best partner. TUSA.